prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum. Get interested, get educated, get involved. Give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
Hello, happy Thursday. My name is Nono, and I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, Mr. Frank.
Yes,
How was
indeed.
your Christmas?
Yes, Santa was good to me. Yeah. So
Hopefully some good food, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I bring today's early topic with some of the uproar I've been seeing on the media recently is that Christmas, unfortunately, did not feel the same. And I was like, because, I mean, personally, my family never did the whole Santa Claus situation because they were like, we work way too hard for you to, be grateful to something that doesn't even exist. But that was just me and my unfortunate immigrant childhood growing up. So.
The magic of Christmas missed you.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I watched the Polar Express in elementary school. I was like, because the theme they have with the bell and how you can only hear it ring if you believe in Santa. So our teachers gave us like the bells and everything. And I was like, oh my God, like I can hear it ring, and everything.
The magic is there.
I went home and I watched it again. I was like, Mom, Dad, Santa is real, right? Look at the bell. And they were like, no. And I started crying and they just laughed at me. So. But I have an interesting video for you all to just listen into for today, and then we'll be on with our next topic. So go ahead and play that clip.
Year Christmas has felt like Christmas, but I ain't gonna hold you. This year it didn't feel right. I was sitting here chilling, and then it dawned on me why that was. So picture this: imagine you driving in a car. You ain't got no Spotify, no Apple Music, or any type of streaming service, YouTube, nothing. So you got to listen to the radio. So now you listen to the radio, you have to listen to Christmas music. Let's keep it going. You want to go watch some TV, and you ain't got no Netflix, no Hulu, no Amazon Prime, no nothing. Instead, you got to watch cable. You got to watch autumn Christmas commercials. You got to watch autumn Christmas movies and specials and things like that. Usually during Christmas, me and the fam, we would hop on that ABC Family and watch autumn Christmas movies. Instead, this year, we sat at the dinner table, went on Netflix, and turned on Avatar: Last Airbender on Christmas Day. Now picture this last piece. Imagine you ain't got Amazon. And when it's time to get all the gifts and everything for Christmas, folk got to go out to the malls and go to the stores and go to all them different places, travel the country to go find those couple of things that they want to get for their families. But now
So that's the end of that. I cut it up a little bit because it was much longer along with all the other clips. But that was Christian Minod on TikTok. And that video was posted 2 days ago. So literally right after Christmas. And I feel like he touches on almost the new instant gratification that our society has come to, where everything is just so convenient. You're in the car, you can play Christmas music playlist on Spotify or Apple Music, like you was saying, on YouTube, things like that. I know when I was younger, they used to do like little like Christmas shows, but it was on the radio.
Yes.
And they had to rely on music in the voice acting to kind of like sell the message of like the Christmas spirit and everything like that. I remember or there would be like specific productions where companies would capitalize on that and having like people tune in for the season, or having those ads playing and things like that, because this was the business. It's almost like Black Friday, which I finally learned why it was called Black Friday, because
you're in the black.
They go out of the red, which I never knew that, but it's like the same. It follows the momentum from Halloween into Thanksgiving into Christmas. So there's all of that I just thought was really important. I hope all of you had a wonderful Christmas, but I guess this is just to be aware of the changing times and how things are just becoming more and more convenient. And later on in his video, he says that it's become so easy to where Amazon will wrap your gifts for you when they deliver it. So you don't even have to go through the process of putting in the care of, the wrapping paper and getting the right one that feels nice, that isn't cheap, with the bow, So things have changed, but this is how the times are. Anyways.
Yes.
The next I have so much to talk about today.
Okay. All right.
The next thing I have to talk about it was inspired by a conversation I had with a friend. So both of us worked with children. She is a sailing instructor, and she worked with children from like I would say like 8 to like 12. So that kind of like range. And then when I worked with kids, this was during the peak of COVID, where I was at the YMCA, and this age group was about like 5 to 9-year-olds, so like very, very young demographic. And one of the things that we always overlap in is the fact that these children, the way they carry themselves is almost like jarring because of what they do. And it's come to a point where it's more inappropriate. Number one, the behavior is inappropriate, but they also engage in like behavior that us as children we wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? If you catch my drift.
Yeah.
And another thing that I've been seeing when it comes to the education system that a lot of teachers have been talking about, or educators or people who want to go into that career industry with education and children, is that there is an education disparity where they're just not grasping on information in the same way. So I wanted to just tackle this going to the new year. And, this is something that we just need to consider, maybe look out for, maybe bring awareness to as we are closing out with 2023. So I remember when I was a kid, we had a program called Hooked on Phonics.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else is going to remember that, but
I grew up with that.
Right.
Okay.
And so like you were taught, how to identify the letters in the alphabet and how to phonetically sound them out.
Correct.
Right. So if it was like the word dog, you'd be like, duh, good, right? And then dog, right?
Right.
So these were things that I learned. That's how I learned how to read, things like that, along with my many other classmates. And we were a lot was emphasized on reading comprehension and understanding how to sound out your words. So that way, if you're faced with a word that may be unfamiliar, you can rely on the phonetics to at least kind of get the word right. Because, there's all sorts of rules.
Range,
and exactly. And then on top of that, like technology still wasn't as advanced as it was now. So, I mean, there was ABC Mouse that I used, Leapfrog, all sorts of websites. There was PBS, Disney Junior, all this, the media was centered around children and teaching them life lessons, but also being educational, demonstrating how to speak languages sometimes, or even math.
Yeah.
Things
Sesame
like that,
Street,
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, like if you look nowadays, like these channels are not the same. Cartoon Network actually is dying, unfortunately. I don't think Sprouts is a channel anymore. Do you remember the Sprouts Network?
No.
No way.
I thought that was a place where you bought groceries.
Yes, it is. But there also used to be a network called Sprouts, and it would only play like children's shows. They were all educational. And I was like, man, why is this happening? And the biggest thing is that, number one, children are being raised solely by their iPads or by a phone or by technology, right?
Yes.
And especially because this is a means to correct behavior, right? And I don't know, we've all seen it. We're out eating with our family, or you're out eating and you see the parents, and then it's like a 5-year-old kid with the tablet, and they're playing games.
Or mom's phone. Yeah.
Right. Right. Just to be like, okay, like stop screaming or stop throwing a tantrum. Or,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so this behavior carries over into the classroom, because at the end of the day, this is where, like, I learned this stuff in school because my parents didn't know any better to teach me these type of like values and principles and have like that foundation of education. Right. So I was doing some research, and Statistica, I don't know how accurate this is because it doesn't mention the reasons as to or how they collected this data, but apparently as of October 2023, about 65,000 teachers and other educational staff quit their jobs in the United States overall, and this has reached its highest point since the pandemic. And I was like, of like people like resigning from the educational field, and I was like, so this is a problem, because I've seen many people speak up about how they can't handle the behavior in the classrooms. Children are losing a sense of consequences and things like that.
Right.
And I was like,
they're not being held to account.
Right. Right. And I was like, okay, obviously they didn't mention, but I think the reason for this is number one, salary, and number two, the legislation around education. Since I know Florida's had a roller coaster of a ride and lots of protesting with how things are supposed to be run in the classroom, but that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
And then just the morale around education overall. And I was like, okay, looking at this from an even deeper perspective, because it has to start from the children at a certain point in the behavior. I have a theory that the reason why this is, and the reason why it's hard for children to even stick like the idea of learning and reading and sitting down and understanding stories or lessons, is because of their attention span. And that is, I believe, like, this is my opinion. I don't know if there's any studies out there on it, but this is a trend that I've personally noticed, that the media that is being pushed out is catered to short, condensed, really, really cheap, like not produced at all, like media. And I have an example of that because I know earlier you were like, "What is this that you sent me?" Right. So,
yes.
Yeah, and so with the shorter attention spans, I don't want to say like ADHD, but like children today, they cannot focus on one thing for too long, and this leads to them to not being able to have the proper comprehension, even when you're speaking to them. It's like, I saw one video, and it was this guy where it's like, oh, when you have that one friend that just has like auditory problems, and then the example was the friend being like, hey, do you want to go out for dinner? And then the friend was like, what? I can't understand you. So then they had to put it in like baby terms. It was like, dinner, me, tomorrow. And then the person was like, yay. It's like, what? Like, this is not how we communicate,
terrible.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we should not have to dumb down to like dinner, show up to work tomorrow, money, like, can you imagine speaking to people like that?
Jeez.
And so, like, I just thought about my own childhood and like comparing it to other people in my age and how they experienced it, where even though we had media catered towards children, it was fully drawn out. You had storylines. Okay, you had identifiable like tropes or like stereotypes, I should say, where it's like, oh, the mean girl or the bully or the nerd. But then you'd see how like they interact with one another, and then the messages of, oh, be yourself, or stand up for yourself, or respect everyone, treat everyone as you want to be treated, like these themes. And I was like, okay, but an example of today's content that has its own syndrome now is called Skibbity Toilet, which is what everybody has been like kind of like uprising, I guess, because they're like, this is the media that children are latching onto, and it's very sporadic and it doesn't make sense. As you were talking about, it sounds like
DXing
the dial,
right,
things like that. And it's like, this is
DXing the dials, when you turn the dial between one radio frequency to another, you get different sounds and different activities or pieces of different things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this is not the quality of content, even though we have more technology to produce it. This is not the quality that mirrors what we had in like the early 2000s or even in the 90s, with phenomenal shows where like children had examples to look up to.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes, exactly. Or like what you mentioned, or Sesame Street.
Right.
I watched, like, I'm a musician. What inspired me to be like that was Little Einsteins.
Yeah.
How they incorporated classical music but catered it towards children. Can you imagine, like, because today's generation, Gen Alpha, on the younger side, would not be able to do that. They would not, because they can't sit down for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting. But I want you to play that clip so everybody can have have a taste for it.
Yeah, all right. I'll do this begrudgingly. Okay, here we go.
And then can you see how many likes that video got actually in the...
No, not in this.
Can you go back just a little bit? You can pause it though. But I think it shows... if you pause it, can you see that with the heart?
Oh, yeah.
How many does that look?
I don't know. It's over 374
thousand.
Yeah, K,
right?
right? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. WSTU, you're on the air. Whoops, wait a minute. I guess not. All right, WSTU, you're on the air.
Hello, Frank. Hello, young lady.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Charlie?
Good, Frank.
Yeah.
So I think she hit it on the head, and I think by the way, I taught fourth grade.
Oh,
years
God bless
ago.
you.
I know. 1973, Mr. B. There I was.
I love it.
And kids, and I had permission. This would never work.
Right.
To spank this one little kid named Jimmy if he acted up.
Yeah.
And I put up with Jimmy and put up with him. And finally I said, Jimmy, come here. And I sat on a chair in front of the class. I said, come here, over my knee. And I just gave him 1, 2, that's it, you know. And he was so embarrassed.
Sure.
You know.
Right.
He became the best kid in the class.
Right. I was going to say, I bet he never acted up again.
Yeah. But anyway, you're absolutely right. We're in the quick, everything is quick, right? Everything is immediate gratification.
Right.
You can go on your phone and do this and do that.
Yep.
So people need to practice conversational English.
Wouldn't that be refreshing? Yeah.
Remember conversational Spanish, Frank, or conversational Italian or German.
Sure. Yeah.
We need to sit around and talk to each other. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, yeah, what's happening? As opposed to, what's up? Whatever. I'm an old man, but I understand. All right. Well, I enjoy your show, and I think you have a lot of good to
impart on our listeners. Yes.
I've always told Frank he's a natural born teacher. I think he's avoiding teaching.
Well, he certainly taught me a lot, but thank you so much. It's good to be back. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlie.
You're back in the driver's seat.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year.
All right. All right. Bye-bye. All right.
Yeah. So, and then this is like an example of like how this is like building up, right? In the household, you know, like everything is just put an iPad, put a phone in the kid's face. And then now with this short attention span, children are already hyperactive already. Right. And I think that's obviously as you get older, if they have focusing issues and if it's a mental thing, that's different. But I always think that children naturally just have more energy because that's the age to be like that, right? And so when this is in the classroom and they can't focus, they can't sit down, they can't have the conversational skills, they can't read or they can't do the work that needs to be done.
They can't sit still long enough.
Yes. Right. This is where you're getting the disparity. And I think so. This person next that I want you to play.
Right.
His name is Justin Bader, and he has a PhD in education, and he's a philosopher as well, and also an author. And I think I had to cut down his video a little bit, but he really hits the nail on the head on what is happening in the school side of especially having consequences. Because I know our caller said that he used to spank people, but children, well, the Jimmy, that one Jimmy. But
my dad would tell my teachers, if Frank steps out of line, you got my permission to spank him.
Right.
And then of course I was told when I came home,
you had no one waiting for you.
I had another one waiting for me. So yeah, needless to say, so it never came to pass, thankfully.
Right. No, it's the quick side story from me, but so my brother, I have an older brother, and when he was in school, he was acting up, and he's always been the bad one of our trio. And so one day, and this was back in like maybe like the 90s, you know, my dad gets a call. So my dad shows up to school and spanks my brother in front of all his classmates. Nice. And to this day, my brother's like, yeah, that's why I'm still scared of dad, because you know he wasn't scared to do that, you know. But that's obviously this generation is a little bit more sensitive. They don't believe in spanking, but there does need to be discipline.
You have to tell kids that there are barriers, that there are limits to what is acceptable behavior and what isn't.
Exactly.
And of course kids, their job is to push those boundaries to see how far I got away with that. Well, maybe I can try this. And then, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
So that's part of being an adult. And,
yep.
And too often parents want to be the child's friend.
Yeah.
And I would always tell my kids, I'm not in this game to be your friend. I'm sorry. You want to love me? Great. If you don't, it's okay. I'm going to do what I think is the best job I can for you.
Right. And I think I saw something like that in this show where it was like it was centered around like an Asian family. But the father was like, I'd rather you hate me for all your life, but look back and at least be grateful that I raised you the way I did because you're living successfully.
Right.
And he's like, you can resent me all your life, but you're going to be grateful because I was so hard on you that you don't have to suffer. You don't have to make the mistakes that you didn't need to.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's really powerful because even though, it's hard, you got whipped as a kid, hard. My friend and I were always like, the hard immigrant life because her family comes from like communist Poland.
Wow.
And then, like my family being from Haiti, like we're always like, immigrant trauma, right? And then, but we're like, at the end of the day, like we go to like the university that we go to, we do the work that we are able to do because of the tough lessons and the tough discipline that we earned when we were children.
Right.
So, but yeah, go ahead and play that video.
Okay, here we go.
Schools and parents are creating a lot of the most severe behavior problems that we're seeing these days. And they're doing so by not having a boundary, not having any consequences. And now we have created a situation where in schools, kids are protected against retaliation, but free to hurt other people. And this is kind of a terrible situation for everybody because everybody else has to witness violence. Everybody else has to be victimized by violence. Kids get furniture thrown at them and nothing is done. And we're seeing new policies now that actually encourage this in the form of, classroom evacuations, never removing a child from school, never sending a child home, always returning the child to class as soon as they're calmed down. And as a result, there's no real reason that child should ever have to change their behavior. And I'm talking specifically about younger students. I'm talking about students who do not have IEPs, who do not have special needs. I saw a great quote the other day from a teacher that said, and maybe a foster parent who said, I want my kids to experience consequences from people who love them before they experience consequences from people who don't.
Yeah, so I cut it up a little bit, but his full TikTok was like 3 minutes long, and I'm not gonna make you guys sit through that. But he pretty much hit on the principles of I don't know what policy he was talking about where it's protecting children, but I think it's come a long way now where teachers they just don't want to put up with it anymore.
Kids will tell their parents that if they're not happy with a decision that mom or dad makes, they have to go to bed early or whatever their deal is. I'm going to tell the police on you.
Oh yeah. Calling DCF. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Working in the sheriff's office, I've seen a lot of those red, like I guess I should say red herrings. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not what those mediums are put in place for.
No.
And it's frustrating because then the parent is like, oh, they're scared of the authorities. And it's like the way you raise your child, you do it so that way they can, like he said, learn the consequences from someone who loves you, because it's gonna be a lot worse from someone you don't. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's like the best way to put it.
Right.
Because it's true.
Yes.
You make the mistakes now with people who will give you grace.
Right. Right. There it is.
But that's just something, because I mean, I've seen so many videos, so many posts, so many tweets, and like I literally saw one person saying that whenever they talk to the middle schoolers of this generation, they feel like they're being like harassed because of the way they talk. And it's like it's unfortunate and it's scary, but one of the main takeaways I want to get from this is the fact that a younger generation without the capability to read or have verbal or even like literate comprehension is a generation that's not going to be prepared for the many harder aspects of life. And I think the biggest thing that confuses me, especially as like being Black and everything, is that I'm so used to seeing these issues in a minority, low socioeconomic, environment or community, where it's because they don't have access to proper education is where we get things such as Ebonics, or even like the way that many African Americans speak is called African American vernacular English. That broken English that we hear sometimes it comes from a place like a lack of education, and you can see that. But now it's becoming like this is affecting a generation on a completely different scale as a whole, and it's not due to race, gender, or socioeconomics, which I think is even worse.
Yeah.
Because if you have the people at the top and at the bottom with the same education, and if everybody else who is educated, if once our time passes, what's gonna happen?
Right.
You know what I mean?
There has take over.
It's gonna be like Wall-E, right? Yeah, and I just think that's just a huge thing, because as we become a more technology-based society, which is not wrong, innovation should always be supported and accepted within society. However, as we invest in the media, in the propaganda or whatever that we're pushing out to younger minds that are more easily influenced, we need to be aware that what we're pushing promotes critical thinking and ingenuity,
right,
rather than random noises. And you guys, for all of those of you who are listening, that video, that little clip that we played, it was like toilets running around with heads sticking out of it, and
it's just awful.
Yeah, Mr. Frank beforehand was really questioning my judgment, because he was like, "What is this?"
Well, it's not good radio. It's from an auditory.
Definitely not. Definitely not. But
so I mean, so you hear the noise, and
it's grating.
It sounds like somebody DXing the dial.
Right.
It's just going from one audio sound bite to another. And
right.
It's just there's no continuity of sound.
Right. But I mean, I'm telling you, if you look into it, like there are children, like this is how they speak.
Yeah.
That's how they speak, and all they say is
just
skibbity, and I'm like, what is that?
Oh my god.
So just something to be aware of. Right, just something to be aware of. Gen Z is waking up to this, and they are learning, and we are growing. So there's that. When are we taking our break?
We can do it right now.
All right. So I have more fun topics for us to get into, so stay tuned, and
we'll be right back, so stick with us. All right, we are back. Take it away, No.
Of course. So, for all of you who are listening out there, and Mr. Frank, I want you to tell me your thoughts on what this sounds like. Okay. The American Society of Magical Negroes. What is that? Like, what do you think a movie like that entails?
Well, something to do with magic. I would think it's probably like a Disney thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, let me make sure it's not Disney. But like, is this? Do you think it's like a fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
Yeah,
it's not. It's not
lighthearted.
Disney. Thank goodness.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I mean, it seems like the title seems lighthearted.
Right.
Okay.
And something like, to play on, tropes and like bring representation for Black people, right? And kind of mirror something like Harry Potter, right?
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Right. Right.
I'm buying that. Okay.
Okay. Because I laugh because so a lot of people thought when this trailer first came out, they were like, oh, like
could
this
be
is gonna
fun,
be like Black Harry Potter, or like something, like fantasy, fun, Lord of the Rings,
right.
Okay, like we get Black wizards.
Yeah.
So I want you to go to the YouTube link I sent you and go to 40, because I need everyone to witness this so they know it's not me misconstruing.
Okay, I gotta go back.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you, the outrage that this trailer caused is actually really funny. Okay. And I have a lot to talk about.
I just got the 3 things that you sent me. That's all I got.
Oh, not the YouTube link? Hold on.
Not the YouTube link. No.
Let me see if I can email it to you really quick.
Because I don't send it to me because it's not there.
Well, I see you got something pulled up. So how about we go to that? And
all right. Well, I could do that. That's actually it's just the today's date in history, so I can cover that, which is always fun.
Okay, hold on.
And
or actually, let me see if I can shoot this to you, and then we can say that after. But
sure.
If any of you out there want to guess what the movie is about, I encourage you to. So probably all of us can experience the truth of what the premise of the movie actually is.
So it failed miserably. So the title does not necessarily describe the content.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no. And I'm so happy that the Black community has come together to dissect the trailer and be like, there was literally a tweet where someone was like, all the Black people need to have a town hall meeting about how outrageous this trailer was. Wow. So
okay, so I had to refresh my browser.
Yeah, hopefully it went through. I just sent it.
I just heard it on my phone. So
perfect.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
So you're gonna go to 40 seconds, or we're just gonna play like 20 seconds of it. All right. I just want to show my work.
Start at 40 seconds.
Yes,
welcome to the American Society of Magical Negroes. To the American Society.
What's the most dangerous animal on the planet?
Shark.
White people, when they feel uncomfortable. White people feeling uncomfortable precedes a lot of bad stuff for us. That's why we fight white discomfort every day. Because the happier they are, the safer we are.
The name needs a little updating, maybe like magical.
So you can go ahead and stop it there.
Black.
So, yes. So
it's a hit on on white people. So white people bad. Okay.
Oh my God. I'm telling you.
So if white people are the reason why Black people are having a bad day.
Is
what they're saying.
It is. Yeah. Okay. So I did some research.
Okay.
Because I talked to everybody about this because I was like, there's no way you have a medium to make a movie. Okay. And you gather well-renowned Black actors, by the way. Also, the main protagonist is biracial, which there's no problem with that.
Right.
But it is known that there are issues with representation because of colorism and how like if you're lighter, you look more white and things like this. So you have more opportunity compared to someone who's of a darker complexion. And this is spread out across many cultures as well. It's not only with Black people, but this is like an issue in representation. So a lot of people are also like the protagonist being a biracial introduced into a society called the Magical Negroes. And then a part of the story is that he falls in love with a white woman.
Yeah.
The very prospect that it's so messy. Oh, I can't wait to hear what this caller has to say.
Right. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, you know who it is.
Oh,
yeah.
Short people have problems too, right, Frank?
Yeah. Everybody has problems.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is short people.
Oh, short
people.
Short
people.
Oh, yeah.
Short.
Yeah. Short. Well, there's a song about that, wasn't there?
Right, yeah, I know. Yeah. We have no reason to live, Frank.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But it's true, though. Good-looking people, regardless of the color.
Right. Get away with a lot of stuff.
Good-looking
Oh,
people.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I hate them all. I hate them all. I hate them
I
all.
love it.
Particularly good-looking football players.
Yes.
I mean, come on, right, Frank?
I know.
Huh?
I know. Especially
You and I kick them in the shin. You know.
it's as high as I can kick. I know it.
I know. I know.
Oh, goodness.
That's why I played soccer, Frank. You know.
I love it.
I had to protect myself.
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm enjoying the show, though. The young lady has hit on something.
Yes, I think.
Thank
so.
you, thank
All
you,
right.
because this also strikes home for me. I'm not happy with this.
All right.
Is
Thanks,
she
buddy.
tall, Frankie? I know she's good looking. Is she tall?
I'm 5'3", unfortunately, so short people
good,
unite.
Good. You're one of us.
Yes.
You're one of us. I
All right.
love my mother, and she was only 5'2".
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
she was a
Her
giant
mother
in your
was
eyes, though,
4'8".
right?
That's why I'm so tall.
Yeah. I love it.
You are quick with it.
All right.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So
Yeah. So okay. So many issues at hand. Okay. So you have a biracial lead, which is like fine, but in terms of representation and what the Black community has been asking for, no, right? Especially since they already clearly established who they're going to be dunking on, which is white people, which I also don't agree with, because racism manifests in so many different ways, across many different cultures, and I have experienced that firsthand. And I think that was one of the most jarring things when I went to college, where it was like, oh shoot, it's not only Black people and white people beefing, it's East Asians and South Asians, it's Indians with other Indians, you know, it's everywhere. It's white people against white, like Jewish people and white, like Nazis. It's like it's so deeply integrated, right? But they've decided, you know, to dunk on white people, whatever, which I don't agree with. And then they take this biracial character and make they're alluding that the love interest is a white woman, which is like, what is the message here, right?
Right.
And I just sat down, I was like, who is this for? Because this is clearly a piece.
Who's your audience? Yes.
Right. Because this is clearly a piece of media that gathered notorious Black actors, or, you know, like dark, because in the trailer, like they're everybody else is completely like dark skinned, at least from what they showed us in the trailer. I don't know the entire cast in its entirety, but they clearly did that, and then had a biracial lead to say, anyone who's hating against it, well, you're just racist. Look at the cast. Look at the people who are playing it. Look at the people on your screen. They're clearly Black people. This is what you asked for. This is the representation. But this is my issue, that in today's society, where we have worked so hard to have opportunities made for people that is beyond color, and then you make a movie like this, and it's just like, what is the message? Especially when it plays on a very common trope of having the magical Black character. So this trope, what it is that you would have a white protagonist, and then it would often be like a Black side character that helps guide them on their journey. Okay. And then that's why they call it like a magical, like that's why they call it like the magical Negro trope, or whatever the heck. I watched a whole analysis video on it, and there's some of the examples was what's the guy from the Black guy from the Matrix? I forgot his name.
Oh, I forget.
But him and how he kind of leads like Neo to like unlock his true potential. That's like one example of that. Or there's so many media, but that's the one that's coming to my mind right now. And it's like, okay, that's fine, right? But I look at this and I'm like, there was so many media from back then when supposedly racial tensions were even worse, if you could say that, where it's like, for example, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the Parkers, like I grew up watching this, like everybody hates Chris. Different Strokes, which I love. Different Strokes is so good about the intersectionality of, you know, being a Black kid adopted into a white family and tackling those issues. Or one of these shows, like Boondocks, it's animated, but I like every Black person ever knows Boondocks, because it's the epitome of our culture and of representation. And I believe that representation should be just rooted in putting people in color into certain roles because they deserve it. They are good actors, and they have something to bring to the screen that their counterparts cannot.
Right.
And that's it. Right.
Yeah. Interpreting the story.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It should not be for some agenda or message. And this clearly is. Because on Google, if you look it up, because I'm one for people doing their research and, having evidence and supporting everything.
Right.
If you do your research, it plays itself off as a satirical comedy. But that's not funny. You saying the apex predator is a white person. Like, if white people are upset, then bad things happen.
Yeah.
We're not in the slave times anymore. Black people are not being whipped to death, and we're, in fact, I think it's 2 or 3 generations now where the average black person is like 2 to 3 generations away from those who were actually slaves. So we have descendants of descendants of descendants of slaves.
Right.
So this whole mentality, it needs to change.
Right.
And I don't understand it.
Yeah, they break out of that mindset.
Right. And then so I was like, okay, so like, is there not other media that tackles racism in a satirical way? And the thing that came up to my mind was Jojo Rabbit. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh,
Roger Rabbit.
Oh, I know Roger. Yeah. But so Jojo Rabbit is this movie about it's like this little German boy, and he has an imaginary friend, and his imaginary friend is Hitler, and then his mom hides a Jewish woman, like it's like a girl, in his house, and then
that's the Anne Frank story,
right? But it's like really funny because it's like Hitler being this kid's like imaginary friend is like like pushing him to be like a Nazi, and it's like really funny. It's like really weird. It's like kind of jarring, but throughout the movie, I should say, you slowly see it become darker and darker, and how like this little boy's like
theme.
right, but the ironclad nationalism he had at the beginning is so different, because then his mom gets hanged for hiding the Jew, and her body is like it's like really, really like jarring.
Yeah.
But it shows like it's able to tackle those themes of like anti-Semitism, like the Holocaust,
right,
while still not being so on the nose and just white people bad, black people magical question mark. It goes back to like the comprehension thing we were talking about before. Like it like we're at a point where we have to like dumb things down, and we lose the meaning and the intentionality of the things that we're creating and the things that we're fighting for and things like that. Is it time for a break?
We're going to take the regulation timeout, but we'll be right back.
Got it. And we will wrap this up.
2-minute warning. We'll be right back.
And we are back, and I will be wrapping up my little segment on this movie. So, to get into, the bullet points of it all.
Okay.
I just think that, in a time where it was so much harder to produce and give people, like people of color, especially, the spotlight in the media, we have so much better representation of Black culture.
Oh my goodness.
And whatnot.
Sure.
Right. In the 90s, especially with like music and hip hop and things like that. It was just a boom. It was like a burst.
Even in the 60s, there was incredible, oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, anything in the entertainment world, there was just all kinds of great entertainment from really good artists. Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was actually shocked that in my music class, I learned that this performer, Nat King Cole, he had his own like late night show.
Oh, sure.
I was like, what? And he would just sing.
Oh, he did some great Christmas songs.
Right. Too. And he would just sing to people, and that was his show. Or like, he would talk here and there, but like he would show like, like the soulful singing or like the jazz, right? That originated from Black. I'm like, where do you see that now?
Yeah.
Instead, it's, movies like this coming out where
nonsense.
Exactly. And it's disappointing because in a time where, as I mentioned before, like the media, what we're showing our children.
Do you think there's like a more sinister thing afoot?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yes. Because I feel something sinister is at play here.
So from what I've been looking into, and I saw like so many videos, like obviously speaking out about this as well. They're like, number one, it's oddly suspicious that this is coming out next year, which is an election year. Number one. And number two, I hate to say it because woke culture originated from Black culture. Like the reason why like a lot of things on the rise, like woke culture is so intimately roped into the Black lifestyle and experience, which is why it's disappointing for me to talk down on it. But the way it has evolved, it's not a reflection of what it used to be.
Right.
So this is mirroring today's woke culture, which I don't like, and it's like the extremist liberal of pinning people against each other, being overly sensitive and hiding behind.
It's a victim mentality.
Yes, and then using race to hide behind that as well. When
right. So if you disagree, you must be a racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When
so you must allow us to shove this nonsense down your throat. Yes.
Or it's like, oh, if you don't agree with this, then you're homophobic, you're transphobic, you don't like people, you don't like immigrants, this and that, and it's so much more complex than that. Especially, and as I mentioned before with the examples, I said like racism, colorism manifests across all types of cultures. It's not only Black people that like suffer from it, as I mentioned with Jewish people. And I actually had this conversation because again, UF has the largest Jewish body population, student body in the entire state. And I was like, theoretically, right, and then if you're also religious, if you're going back to like if you're going back to religious times, right, like Jewish people have been enslaved since like the Exodus, right? So
slavery is no
right
newsflash for them,
right okay. So
and just about every, to be clear, around the world, just about every culture you can think of has been a victim of slavery of one form or another.
Exactly.
So enough of it.
Right. No, and it's true because like when you look at history, it wasn't only white people. They've done, the ancestors, they've done wrong things.
Right.
But like we have to move on and I was talking with my classmate about this. I was like, shouldn't you be in a ghetto and, like living impoverishedly, talking uneducatedly, getting together in gangs? Like, why don't we have Jewish gangs? Like why don't we see news of Jewish people who are children shooting each other in the faces because they were given guns from thugs? I don't hear of news of Jewish people getting arrested for selling drugs. I mean, it could happen, but like like the cycle that I can only speak on the Black community, but the cycle that the Black community often finds itself in is so extreme, but they're willing to stay in their bubble of that extremity.
Right.
When if you look out into other cultures, especially with immigrants, right?
Right.
I know so many immigrant or first generation.
Is that designed to keep people in line just for a certain thought process?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. 100%.
Manipulative. Right?
Oh, yeah. And it's better to break people down and to have the intergroup conflict 100%. But when you look at other minority groups like Asian Americans get no credit for building our railroad systems, or it's not talked about how I don't know how long ago this was, but I know there's a time where they were put into concentration camps in California.
Yes, that was the Japanese during World War II.
Yes, right? Or the trauma.
The worst part is these are Japanese Americans. They happen to be Americans that were of Asian descent because they look different from most Americans.
Right.
They got rounded up because we were at war with Japan.
Right.
Because whatever, but it was the worst possible thing you can do.
Yeah.
And at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. It's like, what?
Exactly.
No.
But
yeah,
that's not talked about.
Right.
Right.
George Takei, who was Lieutenant Sulu from Star Trek. Right. The TV original
I never watched it.
He was rounded up with his parents.
Really?
He was a Japanese American little boy.
Oh my God.
Went to prison camp in California with his mom and dad, and his mom and dad were very gracious about it, but they kind of understood we were at war. But it was a very quizzical thing to happen for a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mentioned all of these to say that, like, nobody is perfect. No race group is perfect. And we all have our skeletons in our closet. But again, being intentional about the media that we are putting out, or the messages behind it underneath, it's very important, because if this is what's going to continue to be produced, we are going to essentially either raise a generation of one-sided thinking, or people are going to be so fearful of having their own thoughts and opinions that they will just appeal to the masses. And that's why I speak out so much about these things, because I advocate for my people so much. I do. And in radio, I seek out the stories of my people. But at the end of the day, it's just so much easier to fall into the victim mentality, to fall into the cycle, when at this point, when you're so many generations away from slavery, you have more opportunity than ever. You have a chance to go above and beyond and just do something if you try. And then you don't. It's really disheartening. And then there's so many people that just claim racism, right?
Just tell American stories.
Right.
I think that's probably the best way. And then if they happen to be people of color, great.
If they're not, oh well, right?
Right.
But I just say that because like, I believe in like Black solidarity, and like
I get it.
You pave the way for your people, like, and that's something that my friend, she's a musical theater major, right? And something that we talk about is how, like, she's one of the only ones in her group. And I was like, well, guess what? Because of all the hard work that you do, because of the roles that you get, you pave the way for another to come in, and you make it just a little bit easier for them. Not because they didn't work for it, but it's because you are setting the example of excellence, and that's what I strive to do every single day. I try to work hard and be an example. So somebody like my sister or my cousins who just came here from Haiti, they're not looked at, oh, you're an immigrant, or oh, you're Haitian, or you're not qualified, but rather look at these people, look at what we've done.
So what you're talking about is called a meritocracy.
Really? I didn't know there was a word for it. I always just believe, that's the legacy I want to leave,
So being successful on the grounds of your own merit. That's what meritocracy is. So it is colorblind.
Yes.
It's just successful because you are you. Yes. Candace Owens is a good example of that.
Yes.
Right? She speaks out, and she's successful on her own personal merit.
Right. Exactly.
So
that's what I strive to be, but it's hard when you're one of the only ones, right?
Yeah.
So
now you know. So the word of the day for you is
meritocracy. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. Thanks for letting me speak on, and we'll see you on the flip side.
All right.
Good night.
Looking forward to it. Take care and have a happy new year.